Hi everyone and welcome to NameHero.com. I'm Ryan, the founder and CEO, and today I want to talk about the introduction of the InterWorx control panel that is now live on our VPS hosting packages. So for those of you that are current VPS hosting customers, you can migrate your VPS to InterWorx for free. Just simply submit a ticket and let us know. And of course, I'll have more information on that on the blog as well as on the website in the coming days. But InterWorx is a control panel that I've had my eye on for a while, and with the recent cPanel price increase, I know a lot of our VPS hosting customers are asking, what other options do they have to where they don't have to worry about an account limit. So just really quick, cPanel changed their licensing structure. Instead of having a license per server that's unlimited, it's now based on the number of cPanel accounts. So a lot of our VPS hosting customers, they want to have unlimited domains on their server, which I understand. And so they were looking for an alternative solution. So we've been doing, me personally, as well as our entire team, have been doing a ton of research on which control panel would really benefit our customers and make it very easy on them. And so we have decided on the InterWorx control panel for all new VPSs. And again, if you have an existing one, you can migrate to it. If you still want to use cPanel, of course, that is still an option. We, of course, still support cPanel. However, the licensing is a little bit different. Those of you that want to have just a couple accounts is one license, and if you want to have 100 accounts, it's a different license. So there's different tiers. But I'm not going to really get into that in this video. I really just want to highlight InterWorx and show its features. But as of publishing this video, you can order InterWorx on any of our 2, 4, 6, 8 VPS options, and we also now have the option to where you can build your own VPS. So if you want to get kind of custom with the amount of disk or memory that you want to add to your VPS, you can do that now. So, and InterWorx, of course, is an option on that. But let's just go ahead and jump right into this so I can show the example. InterWorx, they just recently redid their website, and there's a lot of exciting changes coming out of InterWorx, and that's what really got my eye. Obviously, with the cPanel increase, there's a lot of development going on right now in the control panel world, and InterWorx is one of the leaders, in my opinion, and I've seen a lot of great stuff from that team, so I'm really looking forward to the ongoing development of the project. But you can check out their website here. It's got just some information on, InterWorx is a brand as a whole. Their version of cPanel would be SiteWorx. So when you install cPanel, you have Web Host Manager, which is like the core, and then you have cPanel accounts. So their core or reseller panel or master server panel is called NodeWorx, and then the sub panels are SiteWorx. So the whole brand's InterWorx, and then you have this NodeWorx, which is like the server control panel, and then SiteWorx, which is for each individual account set up on the server. So trying to clear that up, whereas cPanel is Web Host Manager is the server root control panel, and then you have the cPanel accounts for the children accounts. So again, they've got a bunch of features, and they also highlight their differences between them and cPanel. And if you go down here, you can see there's some testimonials. There's me, and some other stuff here. So it's good stuff, and it is offered now on all of our VPSs. And it's offered for free, so no additional charge. If you buy one of our managed VPSs for 2 through 8, it is included for free. And again, if you already have a VPS with us here at NameHero, you can upgrade to InterWorx for free. And you don't have to worry, there's not any account limit tiers or anything like that. It's just it's just one license for every server, and it comes complimentary on these. Okay, so I've got a test VPS set up, and I'm just in my NameHero client area. So just like if you have a current server with us, or if you've seen other videos, it's the same way. Just go into our client panel, and you're going to see you've got your login details. Now this is going to be your username and password for InterWorx. For the main control panel. Now, when you click this, if you don't have two-factor on, you can't see it. So for your security, we don't keep this in your panel unless you enable two-factor. So you'd want to go ahead and enable that, or of course, this would be the password that you set up when you signed up with us, or it will be inside of your welcome email. So here's my server, and I've got a link right here called NodeWorx. So if you've had cPanel or Web Host Manager with us, or currently, this button here is Web Host Manager, and there's also one for cPanel. But now I've got NodeWorx, so I'm going to click to log in. Now, when this comes up, this is an IP address, and we link to this in our interface, the IP address to NodeWorx. on a self-signed certificate. So that's why it's saying the connection's not private, because it's a self-signed certificate. It's not for production use, but most of the time when customers sign up for a VPS, their DNS hasn't propagated yet, and most of the time they haven't even set up their DNS. So they want to access their control panel. So you can go ahead and proceed. This is safe. It's just self-signed because it's your new server. So here's what InterWorx's NodeWorx control panel looks like. And again, this is the default to begin setting up accounts. So it's a pretty clean layout, I think. You can go ahead and enter your username. And if you just deployed with us here at NameHero, once again, it will be found right inside of the login details in your welcome email. And then I've got my password, which again, you define this when you set up your VPS. And of course, if you have any questions, you can let us know, but you can also see it in the client area if you have two-factor on. So we're gonna go ahead and log in. Okay, so this is the inside of NodeWorx. And you can see it's it's kind of categorized here on the left menu, and then you've got your information about the server, and of course you've got just kind of their logos and stuff. So I guess the first thing I'll say is all of their templates are customizable, so you can actually download these templates and make your own. You can edit theirs, or you can make your own or customize or whatever. So if for our VPS customers that are out there reselling, don't worry, you can make this your own brand, which I think is really cool. Since InterWorx is a control panel, it's been around a while, but it doesn't have a huge user base. If you are a reseller, this is an advantage to kind of have something new and fresh for your audience. All right, so I'm just going to kind of highlight some of these features, and then over the course of the next several weeks, I'm going to do tons of YouTube videos, tons of tutorials and blogs and knowledge base articles that tell you how to do specifics. But the purpose of this video is just kind of to introduce you to the InterWorx control panel. So the first thing is we have some notices. We'll click them. And thanks for installing InterWorx. To get you started, review our documentation here. Okay, we're going to dismiss that because Mr. Ryan at NameHero's got some documentations for us. Dismiss it. All right, so now we'll just go back here. We're back here on the home. All right, and then I want to go through just some of the core dashboard here. So the first thing is we have your info. This is a server administrator user. So of course, if you want to edit this, if you just set up your server with us at NameHero, you probably want to edit this to have your information. So you would go to edit. And you'd change server admin to your name and use your email address, and of course you can change your language, and there's many different themes. Like I said, you can download any of these and make your own, which is cool. The menu style, so this just changes the way the menu lays out. I've got this set to small, that's the default. Most of my tutorials, I'm going to use just all the default stuff, so for those that are just getting started, you can follow along, but of course you can customize your own. And then of course, password, changing your password. I always recommend once you deploy a VPS, since your welcome email most of the time contains that password and stuff, I like to reset a new one, so you can always use a password generator. Which shows it here, which shows the real strong password here, but you can sit here and play around with it. I'm not going to change mine because if I change it in this video, someone's going to get into it. So I definitely recommend doing that. Okay, so now let's go to server status, or service status rather. So the thing about InterWorx, it's got pretty much all the same stuff. If you've used any other control panel out there, pretty much all the standard stuff, but I'll just highlight it. So the Apache web server, which is port 80 and 443, that's pretty standard. It is cool that they already have integration with Lightspeed. And so if you want to use Lightspeed web server instead of Apache, which is a drop-in replacement, you can buy your license from us here at NameHero, and we'll go ahead and switch that over. But it's already integrated to work with InterWorx. We just have to enter your license key and actually enable it over top of Apache. So here's your basic actions. You can start, restart, or stop Apache. Dovecut, mail server, SMTP mail server, so standard stuff here. Alt inbound SMTP server. Outbound mail, spam filtering, virus filtering, FTP, MySQL, which is Maria database, DNS, SSH, and they have a network file server ability. So if you want to have, a shared file system, I thought that was cool. It's already integrated. And then the firewall, by default, we've got the CSF firewall installed by default. So I love CSF. I've used it for many years, and I could not part ways with it. So it's definitely going to be with this here with InterWorx, as it is with cPanel Web Host Manager. And so I don't know why. I'm not sure why their status isn't showing this. Probably because it's a external plugin, but we'll get to that as well. If I go to server info, I can go down here and just kind of see information about my InterWorx license. This is the version I'm running, which of course NameHero will handle all the upgrading for you, so you don't have to worry about installing that. Unlimited domains, you can add as many as you want. There's no SiteWorx account limit. We are on CentOS 7. Now, they do have the ability to integrate with Cloud Linux, but right now I've just got a standard CentOS 7 box for this, just because that's probably the default configuration that a lot of people will use, but I thought that is important to mention. This is our CPU, our processor. It's in the VPS. We have, this is a 2 gigabytes VPS, so I deployed this on our Hero 2 gigabyte. Of course, you can, since we are on the cloud here at NameHero, you can scale up to any of these at any time. Of course, even if you want to scale to your own custom, you can do that as well. So anytime you start running out on memory. But this is just where you see what's in there. The uptime, 1 day, 1 hour, 46 minutes, and my load average. And of course, any shell users logged in, and then my disk usage. So we have about, I think we have 30 megabytes or 30 gigabytes, so we have about 21 free. Took about 17 to install and partition everything. But just kind of all the basic information about your server. I like how it's all shown here nice and neat. This isn't really stuff you check every day, so you can just kind of minimize this and you're all good. They've got some graphs here, of course. CPU utilization. If you're hitting big CPU limits, you'd want to take a look at this. We also offer this inside of our NameHero panel. And for some reason it's not showing at this moment. Probably because I just deployed it and I don't have any history, but we also show that as well. And you can see it's going by week. So it starts off here by the day. Then we get down here by the week, or still by the day, and then by the week, and then by the year. Wow, so that'll show us if we're having an increase. So just kind of your standard stats there. Going back here, so we've got our memory, CPU memory, and then bandwidth. Bandwidth. Nowadays, I almost think of bandwidth graphs kind of useless because so many sites. We're really each one of our VPSs, and this is new as well. We now include 10 terabytes of outgoing bandwidth. Incoming bandwidth has always been free at NameHero. The old standard was 5 terabytes. We have moved that up to 10, so that's a lot of bandwidth. I doubt many people are going to run into that, but anyways, it's still there in case you need to check it. If you're a reseller, you might want to check that as well. Okay, so that's just this main dashboard, not a ton of stuff, pretty clean. So then if I click the drop down here, you can see this is for NodeWorx. This is for the master control panel. So right off the bat, what I like is you can set up different user accounts. Obviously I've got my main master login. But if I want to create a child account to get into the master control panel, I can easily do it here. So I can just go to add NodeWorx user. And let's say if I had a company and I've got a manager or a business partner, and of course it's not safe for me to give them, the master login. So I could create them their own login, with their nickname it, and have their own email. I can customize the language. I can even customize the theme that they're going to use, the menu style, their password, and then I can give them specific permissions. So, especially if I hire a developer, and again, this is different from the actual SiteWorx account. This is a NodeWorx account, so like the master control panel, which has access to a lot of stuff. So I can give them really specific stuff. Obviously log in, but I could get really specific about what I want them to have access to. So I think that's a great feature, and I think that's something that Web Host Manager and cPanel have lacked for years is to have sub admin accounts, so that you have multiple options for people to get in where no logins are being shared. So that's pretty cool. Languages, this is pretty standard stuff nowadays. Pretty much everything out there is, templated to have multiple languages. So, of course, that's going to be needed. I speak English, so I'm going to keep it at that. But of course, if you need more, there's more options. These are the themes. So like I said, the cool thing about InterWorx is all of their themes, you can download, delete them, use it, preview it. And then when you download, you can actually edit and upload your own. So again, I think that's really cool stuff. So if you just don't like the layout of it, you don't like the colors, you don't like the logos, you can make your own. And it's I think they're using the Smarty templating system from what I remember. Now it's been a bit since I've downloaded one, but it's super simple for those of you with development backgrounds to be able to edit. So that's great for you resellers out there. API key. So this is if if you're using WHMCS to set up accounts. If you're using another billing system, you can generate an API key here. I'm not going to do that here, but pretty standard and easy to do. They've got plugins. So this is a couple of the plugins that they have that you can enable right here without having to install. These are like pre-packaged. So it's Softaculous. People will be glad to know this is the auto installer of choice for me at NameHero. We have on all of our accounts, and you get a free license with us here at NameHero. So all of our VPS hosting packages, and of course, if you have a web hosting or reseller hosting account, you have access to Softaculous. But you do get a free license with us here at NameHero, so that is installed and enabled. Your customers will love that. That's your one-click WordPress installs, updates, staging, all that. R1 Backup Soft, we're not yet integrated with R1, so that's an option out there for NodeWorx, or for the NodeWorx panel inside of InterWorx, but we're not integrated for R1 Soft yet. Let's Encrypt, so you have free and automatic SSL certificates. That's already enabled by default, and you're all set. Free and automatic SSL. It's very much needed nowadays, and so if you deployed a brand new VPS with InterWorx, then your sites are going to get SSL certificates. You can do catch-all email control, and so this will allow like all your SiteWorx accounts to be configured with catch-all email addresses. Personally, I'm not a fan of that, but of course you got that option. Create email accounts for new domains. So this will automatically create a list of email accounts for new domains, if you want it. But each one of these you can click on here, and this will give you, more details. I don't know if I want to spend too much time on each one of these, but just a bunch of different features here. Cloudflare CDN. At NameHero we offer the ability to integrate you with Cloudflare with Railgun, and so if you wanted to do it on your own, you could. They've got a module already set up, but you would just need to click edit and fill this stuff out. If you bought it through us here at NameHero, we'll come in and configure it all for you. So Cloudflare is kind of, it's enabled. It's got the ability to use Cloudflare, but it's got to be configured. So it's already all set though. CSF Firewall, which I said is our firewall of choice. It's automatically enabled and ready to go, and we'll get to that in just a second. CSF is pretty big, so we'll get to that in a second. We've got event hooks, external network file system quota. These are disabled, but options that you have if you need it. Auto-enable shell users. I don't recommend that, but of course you wanted to, you could. Auto-set spam preferences. Of course you want to have that. This sets up Spam Assassin, which again, Spam Assassin is one of those projects that got started in the 90s, and I never thought it would keep on going, but it's only continued to not only go, but really improve, and it's a great plugin. So that's enabled by default. A Hello World sample plugin. I don't know what's that do? This plugin adds a Hello World menu item to the top of both NodeWorx and SiteWorx. That's interesting. Maybe that's so you can work on your templates. I don't know. I'm not sure. Lightspeed, as I said, it's all ready to go to use Lightspeed, but this doesn't come with a license, so you have to get that separately. And of course, you're free to go to Lightspeed and buy your own, or you can get one through us here at NameHero. If you get it through us at NameHero, we'll make sure everything's installed, configured correctly, and we'll also support it. If you bring your own Lightspeed license, unfortunately, that doesn't include our support. And of course, session history. If you want to have session logs for users, you can enable that. So just basic plugins here, and this isn't an exhaustive list. There's other InterWorx plugins that you can install, but these are ones that are kind of pre-packaged. They just need to be enabled, and of course, some of them already are by us by default. If you get authentication, this is a setup two-factor. Of course, I do recommend doing this. You would just generate it and kind of set it up just like if you've got it on your NameHero client portal, which I hope you do. It's kind of the same process. Subscriptions. This is kind of like the monitoring. So this shows you, when these certain events happen, they'll notify your account. So this is the master account. So I think by default, all of these are subscribed. And I think you can modify that per account. But this is just if Clam AV stops working, or if something doesn't connect, it'll let you know. So I kind of recommend leaving that default and then tailoring as you move along. So that's just the NodeWorx menu. If I get into SiteWorx, so remember, this is the InterWorx's version of cPanel. So SiteWorx is what, if you're a reseller, this is what your customers would use to manage their accounts. So again, SiteWorx is very similar to like cPanel. So first thing is, let's click Accounts. And I've got a demo account set up already, and I just called it defaultpanel.com, so I just set up one. Let's see here, if I go to add a SiteWorx account, this is where I set it up. So this is the same as if you were in Web Host Manager and you were going to add an account. This is where you would do it. You can see the first thing is reseller, server admin. So I'm a root user, so that's the user that created this and who owns the account. If you had resellers, we're going to talk about that in a second, but this is, it would be as them. They would own the account, not the root. The master domain, though, this is just the domain that you're setting up. You know, it could be a subdomain or it could just be a normal domain. IP address, I've got 2 on this VPS, but you could use the shared, but if you want dedicated, of course, we offer that. We don't have any IP6s yet, but that will probably come for too much longer. Database is going to be localhost. It's cool that InterWorx also provides the ability to set up an external database server. So, you know, if you didn't want to have your database hosted on the same server, high traffic, high availability, clustering, or doing anything like that, then you've got that option. But this specific VPS is just running the database on the local server. This would be the username of the account, and this actually will fill out. Let's see, ryangrayiscool.com. It should fill out. There we go. See, it automatically fills out based on the domain. I can nickname it here. So this is just as an optional field. You don't have to do it. You know, I suppose if I wanted to put on here CEO NameHero, I don't know. You know, if you want to put something to kind of tag it or whatever, I think it's kind of redundant when you have a username and an email and domain. I don't know. I don't see really a need for that, but it's optional. The email address, this is a user's email address of the account. The password, which I always recommend using the generator. English is my language. The theme, I'm just using the default in the menu style. And this is interesting. This is billing day. So this is what the bandwidth is calculated on. So, you know, if you're billing a user based on their bandwidth, this would be the day that you calculate that billing. I don't see that used too much nowadays, you know, not in 2019, heading into 2020, billing for bandwidth, but that option's in there. Additional IP addresses, so if you wanted to give them access to multiple IP addresses, you know, your VPS comes with one, but if you ordered additional or you want more, then you could do that here. PHP version. So by default, InterWorx has multiple versions of PHP and the PHP selector. So, and also PHP FPM is default. So that's pretty cool. But you have the option to set the SiteWorx account PHP level by default. So 7.2.22, you know, it's kind of where we are right now as far as most people using it, you know, safe and secure. 7.3.9, you know, that's coming about, so some people might want it. But what you could do is I recommend, again, right now in late 2019, 7.2, obviously this changes, so as this video ages, please check. But then you can give them access to other versions. So, you know, 7.2 is the most popular and used right now. I'd probably also give them access to 7.3. And also you might want to give them access to 7.1 because they might have some other applications that need it. Now, it does have some of these older versions of PHP. Personally, you know, 7.0 reached end of life a year ago, or right at a year ago. So I don't recommend giving that, but if you have to, you know, do that on a case-by-case basis. But I don't like using outdated versions of PHP. You know, me personally, 7.1 is as far back as I would be willing to go, but of course it's your VPS, so you have root access, so you do as you would like. But this gives the user the option, you know, by default they'll use this, but then they could select any of these. And if you also just want to do the system version too, you know, because you can change this on a server level, and it'll change all the SiteWorx accounts created under it. All right, next is the package template. So I don't have any packages set up. I guess I could set one up, but I don't. So this is just an unlimited template. So this is going to say unlimited everything. So, and you know, this is your package for like disk, bandwidth, emails, autoresponders, email accounts, you know, all the stuff that you see, you know, at NameHero on our accounts and stuff. This is where you're setting all that up. And you can set up a package or you can define the stuff here. You can create the new package in here as well. So like maybe basic, gold, bronze, you know, and set limits here if you want. So we could go to choose one. Oh, that wants me to choose a package. Anyways, it's kind of standard stuff there for packages. Package PHP FPM settings. So this is specific PHP settings for this account. So if I click my thing here, Max children is the number of simultaneous requests. You want to be careful of this, because if you set this too high, you're going to starve your server of memory, and it'll start swapping, which of course you start swapping, then you're going to look at a bunch of other stuff. So, I would start at 5 and just kind of see how it goes with an account, especially if you're setting up for a customer of yours. If you're, say, reselling shared hosting, or maybe you're an agency, start at 5 and you can always go up, but 5 is the default. Max request, this is the number of child processes before respawning. And this can cause leaks and a bunch of other stuff. So you could always do 0 and disable it, but I think start at 200 and see where it is. And these populate by default 200. If you have any questions of this, ask our team. But really, for the average user out there, start with default, and if you run into problems, then go from there. I wouldn't try to, unless you specifically know what you're doing, I wouldn't go customizing. Same thing if process management, on demand, dynamic, or static. I would just do on demand. This controls how the process manager spawns the children processes. So again, I can get in tech details, but that's not really the purpose of this video. I'll save that for later. And then finally, Softaculous. As I mentioned, Softaculous is free at NameHero on all of our hosting accounts, including our VPSs. So if you wanted to give the user access, you could, but if not, you go to no. So that's pretty much it, and you just click save and it would set up the account. Now I'm not going to set that one up because I've already done one. So this is what it looks like once it is set up. So pretty simple stuff. Now if you're using WHMCS or another billing system out there to create accounts, then that will automate that process for you. WHMCS works with it, so for resellers out there, you don't really have to worry about going through that manual kind of pain every single time. All right, so that's the accounts. And also, if I click accounts, I can always edit, manage the IP addresses, or I could virtually log into their SiteWorx account. So while we're here, let's go ahead and do this. So this is what you would give your customer, or if you're, say, you're a reseller and this is the account you made for your customer, or if you're an agency and you've made a WordPress site or something for a customer, this is what you would give the webmaster to control and manage just their site, not the whole server, not the whole VPS. So this would be kind of the same thing as cPanel. So if you gave a customer cPanel access, this is SiteWorx, which is like cPanel. So it shows their master domain. This is their main dashboard. Shows the user. So this is just default. I created it, which is default at default panel, and the IP address. And then we've got all their account features, bandwidth, disk, email, so they can check any usage. Common task, add an email box, FTP password, subdomain, and error log, and then their bandwidth snapshot. I did tell the InterWorx team I didn't like the bandwidth charts, but they still have it in there. Maybe they'll change it. I think it would be better off to show something like, especially if you had Cloud Linux LVE installed on this, to show those stats there. I don't like bandwidth. Anyways, so then we've got our menu items here. So again, this is just the home, the main page for the user. Under hosting features, this is where they would go to set up email addresses. So under email overview, you can see there's only one mailbox set up. Aliases, that's like a forward. Groups is to set up groups of email addresses. Then autoresponders. I think the mailboxes will be mainly used, as well as aliases. If I click on mailboxes, I can see what's set up. So just Postmaster, that was set up by default. So I can, once the account's set up, I can edit, delete, or I can create a new email address. You can also copy emails that come in. I don't recommend that. This just sets up different email addresses for the user. Aliases, this would be like your forwards. So, if I wanted to forward, webmaster, that default panel to Ryan at NameHero, I would do that here. Groups. So this, forwards to groups. So, one thing I like about groups is, if you had a bunch of partners in an organization, you could do like partners, that default panel, and then you could type all the email addresses that it's going to forward to. So, if you had a couple managers or whatnot, maybe managers at your company, just makes it simple. Google Apps or G Suite has that ability too. Autoresponders. This is if you want to set up an autoresponder. Personally, I think autoresponders are outdated. It's 2019. Everyone's got their phone on, or their email on their phone, but some people still like a vacation message. Think they're annoying, but you can do it. Webmail. So this is their webmail interface, and so you've got Roundcube or Horde. So this is the same that cPanel and Web Host Manager have used for years. They did have Squirrel Mail, but they got rid of Squirrel Mail too. So Horde and Roundcube are your options. So if you've used cPanel, same thing here. This is where you would go to log in using whatever email address you created, or your customers too. They could go to the webmail and get it. Domains. So first off, let me close this menu here. So we have our primary domain, which is what we set up as default panel. Now, secondary is like an add-on domain. So if your customer or whoever you're setting the account up for, if you have multiple domains, you can have multiple domains in a SiteWorx account. So that's similar to cPanel's add-on domains. Personally, since InterWorx allows the ability of unlimited accounts inside of NodeWorx, I would create a new account. But if you have a customer, just one customer, and they want to set everything up under one, they could do it here. They would just add it here, whatever the domain may be. They can set the multi-PHP to it. So I'm just going to put demo.com, so it'll let me do something. Now, I didn't turn the selector on when I did this account, so I just have one version of PHP, but I showed you previously setting up an account, so you can give them that option. I just have the one IP address. I don't have IP6, and so then I would just add it here. So you can see down here the existing domains. That's my default panel. Here's the PHP, the IP address, and it's the master account. So of course you couldn't delete that. But this will show all the domains you set up in multiple versions per domain. So if you have different domains with different versions of PHP, that is definitely very handy. Pointer domain. So this is like a v-alias, a virtual alias. If you wanted to point, demo.com at default panel, you could do it with a permanent redirect or a temporary or an actual server alias. This is like a vhost, so it actually retain the domain and show the content from here. I think cPanel calls that. I think they call it aliases now. I think for a while it was park domains or whatnot. But yeah, so it's kind of the same thing here. Adds it to the vhost. Subdomain, kind of just like adding a secondary domain, is you just put whatever the subdomain is, add it, and it's taking a second to add. It's got to do the DNS, of course. So add it up here. And I can delete it when I've got a target directory. So I can upload my files inside of here, which I'll get to the file manager, which of course you could still FTP. And I think that just links to it. Yeah, that's not going to work. All right, so going on down the list here, PHP options. So I've got my main domain. I can edit it, and you can see I only have one version on this account selected. So I could select or change the version of PHP if I wanted. Got my DNS records. So if I click View Records, and this is where I go and modify or edit my DNS. For those of you that are using private name servers, this is where you'd set up like NS1 and NS2, which I'll give a full tutorial on that. But everything's managed inside of here. Inside of NodeWorx, you can set up a template too. So I'll populate a lot of this stuff as well. SSL, this is probably one of the most popular because this is your Let's Encrypt interface. So if you wanted to make sure you have the SSLs installed. So now if I go to defaultpanel.com, that actually is a domain I bought, by the way. You can see it. So let's see if I can go to it here really quick. Go to default panel, copy it, just go over to webmail, paste and go. So I didn't hit the secure. You can see I've got a lock here. It's secured, free and automatic by Let's Encrypt, and it's the non-www version, and I think www is set up. I don't have it set up yet. Anyways, but you can set up subdomains on Let's Encrypt as well. So what you would do is, if you just set up your hosting account, you would just go to Generate All with Let's Encrypt, and you can see you can define the common name, which would be your main domain, or you could even use www if you wanted, whatever the common domain is, and the alternative names. So this is where you have like, so for example, www. Maybe we could hit all these actually if we wanted to. Let's see, and your email address, live or staging. Let's do live and generate. We might break something, but we might not. But anyways, this is just how you run that Let's Encrypt module to get your free and automatic SSL certificate. Now I say automatic, I'm not sure if I've got to sit on a cron job or not. But anyways, this is where you generate it. And this just failed. I think that's because I've already got it all set up. But that's how you go to do it. So if it's your first time, you're not going to see that error like I just got. But you can see the private key, you'll see installed. CSR, we don't need this with Let's Encrypt. So this is be more if you're getting a premium SSL certificate, like extended validation, you could set up one here. But you can see this shows SSL is installed. So I can view certificate and see that I'm all good on my SSL. But this is where you would check to make sure that the SSL is set up, and then the change certificate. You don't need that. And then you've got issued on 9/12, and it expires 12/11. And this should automatically renew, though, as long as you don't go change any crazy settings. Let's Encrypt automatically renews. It's a great thing about it. All right, so that pretty much handles your domain stuff, your multi-PHP, your add-on domains, your subdomains, all your PHP options, DNS, and SSL. Kind of everything in there inside of InterWorx that you would expect to see inside of a control panel. Nice and clean. FTP. If you want to create FTP accounts, of course you can. Same stuff here as adding an account. You're adding a subdomain. You would just add the user, generate your password, and then put the home directory. What directory does this user have access to? Which is good if you have a developer, so they only get one folder or whatnot. Then you would add them, and then they have access. So you can see by default, this one here is created, kind of the root one. Right? You go to edit it and change the password and all that if I needed to. But then, of course, I could set that up in my FTP program. And I can go to sessions and see if anyone's logged in. So I like how they put that right here. So then I can see did I leave a session active, because that's never a good idea. I'm not a huge FTP fan, but if you want to still use it, you can. It's your VPS. Me personally, I like to use SFTP, which you can do that as well too. But we're not going to configure that right now. So MySQL, again, Maria database is the default MySQL engine, which is a drop-in replacement. Better performance and faster. So this is just where I would create a database. So if I wanted to just create a blank database, I would do it here. And this is where I create users, so database users, and access to get the database. Then of course we've got PHPMyAdmin, and I don't have a database, so I can't access it. But this is where I go to PHPMyAdmin. Of course that's a PHPMyAdmin. You need that if you're using databases. At least I like to have it, or I need it at least, I should say. Cron jobs. This is where you would set those up. So I've got a couple by default here. It looks like that are set. So I wouldn't mess with any of these. It might not even let me. Oh yeah. So these are these are just paths by default. So if you wanted to add a cron job, you could go to the simple interface and do it. Me personally, I have to use a simple interface all the time because I can't ever get these straight. When I'm creating a manual one. But this is where you'd go to set those up. If you needed a cron job set up, and you could manage them. And they've got their advanced interface if you are up on your cron job syntax. Me, I have to use a simple. All right, so let's go to htaccess. And this is what we can do a global htaccess file. Most of you won't need to do this, but if you want to, you can add a global one. And so this will be in all the, this will globally go out. So this will inherit this will affect the entire site and subdomains. So this is a kind of a template used for htaccess. A lot of people want to, set up their own access control, character set, index management, hotlink protection. This allows you to kind of create a base template and have it deploy on all the sites. I would say it's more for the advanced user. If you're just getting started, you probably don't want to do that. But nonetheless, it's cool that you have that option. I'm just going to delete this so we don't have any questions on it. If I'm using Softaculous as well, it's going to do its own thing. So, but that is an option. So now let's get to Softaculous, the automatic installer, which comes free at NameHero. So you have to agree to the license, which I do. All right, so now your customers, if you're a VPS owner, your customers have access to this as well. So most of you are familiar with Softaculous, or at least if you've used this at NameHero, you are. If you want to install WordPress on your domain, you just go in here and do it. It's, all set here, 5.2 here. And, kind of the same stuff that you normally would with Softaculous. And in directory, I would just do default. and all that stuff. So, you've got access to this. This is where you do your one-click WordPress installs, updates, staging, and all that stuff is done in here. And of course, your customers can use it. So I think there's over 400 scripts now in Softaculous. So it's a great asset to have. And so that's all integrated and ready to go and free at NameHero. Administration. So this is cool. If you've used cPanel before, they didn't allow for child cPanel logins. So if you had a developer that needed cPanel access, you'd have to give them yours or not give it to them at all. I hated that. It was such a security risk. So you can add a sub-user for your developer, for your webmaster, for your whoever, and you can give them specific access. So just like you can for the NodeWorx, you can do the same for SiteWorx. So I think that's a really cool feature. We've got logs, web server logs, or let's encrypt logs. We can see what happened to our last one. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, unauthorized. Interesting. I'm not going to take time to troubleshoot that, but yeah, that is cool that those are in there. Recent visitors, these you can see Let's Encrypt engine going there. So, if you're getting a ton of traffic, you can always go browse and see if an IP is hitting you hard. What else do we have in here? Logs, recent visitors, authentication. Okay, and one last thing in here. Or no, we'll go to get that next. Authentication, this is two-factor. This is two-factor for SiteWorx, the same as we saw in NodeWorx. Everyone should set up two-factor, though. Mail options. So this is remote. If you wanted to change it from local to remote. So if you're using G Suite, this is where you would do that. Again, I'll have videos on all that stuff, how to do it, but this is where you'd manage it. Here, spam filters are in here. Deliver to spam or delete the message in here or add a filter. So again, this is Spam Assassin setting all that up. Spam settings. Again, Spam Assassin's by default on, and by default it's going to deliver it to a spam folder, and you can change all this up the more aggressive you get. Once again, I've got tons of videos already on Spam Assassin, but I'll get some specifically for SiteWorx so you know how to use it. But it's got all the stuff in here basically, to keep spam at bay, which can be a challenge. Our SPF records, I don't have one set up right now, so I would probably want to set up an SPF record. So I could do that in here. So they've got a little generators where I could do this. Yeah, name records, yes. MX records. Yeah, so I could set it. My SPF record is a DNS record that that pretty much validates my email. So so other mail servers don't look at it as spam. Once again, I don't want to spend time configuring that because I could talk forever about SPF records. Our team was more than willing to help though if you need help setting that up, or I have videos on how to do that as well. DKIM, kind of the same stuff here, setting up those records, not by default set up, but I could. Oh, they got a testing mode too, to make sure it will work as well. So that you can set up DKIM in here too. So that's important for your email. All right, so now if we get to the other stuff, we've got backups. Backup now. So we could do a full backup, partial, or structure only. So several options to back up your account. You can do your default location, which I'm assuming default's set to the site's home. Local, which means you can download it. FTP it or SFTP. So, multiple options here to get a backup of your site. You can manage existing backups. I don't have any. And then you can schedule a backup. So you can create schedule. You can do full, weekly or monthly, and you can let it know what kind of backup and then where you want it. So I think that's cool stuff as well. Statistics, or bandwidth. Once again, I think bandwidth is useless nowadays. Some people it's still not, but if you want to check your bandwidth, that's where you do it. Webalizer, no stats available. I just created this, so Webalizer takes some time to run, but that's standard. It's on a lot of servers nowadays. Same with AW Stats. Let's see if, AW Stats. These stats here, not near like Google Analytics or anything, but some people still like them. And me personally, I'll look at them too if I, want to see something specific. So that's all integrated. Then your analog stats too. I don't think any of this is ran yet. Yeah, nothing is ran yet on these. So as stats generate, they'll come in here as well. And then of course real time. This shows 5-minute stats. 30-minute average, and 2 hours. These are beneficial here if you're having an attack on your site or a spike in traffic. You can see it here easily. Now, see, I wish they'd put some of this on the main page. Might have to see if they'll do that instead of bandwidth, because this stuff here is more valuable to me than bandwidth is. File manager, this is one thing about InterWorx that I'm not a huge fan of, is I think their file manager is kind of outdated, but I think they're working on it. If I click, I can click a file here though and edit it. This is just the main index of the site. I think, see this test page here? It's in right here. So I can just edit it and save it, and boom, and it saves. So I think I can do, let's see, if I switch to HTML, yeah. So this shows here, what you see is what you get editor. So, if I go back to my test page here, so I could do like welcome all, save. If I go back here and refresh, welcome all. So, it's a pretty simple text file editor. And so I guess I don't want to say it's outdated. It needs to be styled a little bit better, in my opinion. It's, if I upload a file, I still have to choose it. I like the drag and drop type stuff. I guess that's the main reason I don't like it. But it's still all right. Create a new file, new folder, and I can even protect a directory if I want to. But again, just kind of your standard file editor. I think a lot of people might use their own clients as well. If you're using WordPress and you don't really need a file manager, is not really that useful. But of course they do have it in there. Preferences, let's take a look at that. Save web transfer logs. The transfer log will saved in a format you can download. If no, then the logs are saved. By default it's saving these. These kind of clutter your stuff up sometimes. So it's up to you. I probably wouldn't use them unless I had a problem, but it's kind of up to you if you want to save those or not. And subscriptions. So this is like the NodeWorx account where you get messages if you have an issue. So bandwidth limit, SSL expired, SSL nearly expiring, or storage limits. Anything you need to be notified about, you can subscribe to. So now that's about it inside of SiteWorx. So you can see it's it's pretty simple, but it's got everything that, in my opinion, that you would need is in there. And it is pretty clean and pretty simple to use and see. So feel free to add feedback or whatnot. As a reminder, you can download these templates, as I said, and modify, edit, or create your own, which is cool for the reseller specifically. Now what I did is I just logged out and I went back in here to NodeWorx. So I'm back here to where we were in the beginning when we created that account. So if you're a reseller, your customers have pretty much the same features that they would need, or your clients will have the same features that they need, and you can manage them all. But continuing on here throughout some of these options, you've got the shell users, who has shell access and not. And of course, root does, and you can change that password. I wonder if I want to see here. I could quickly disable root shell. There's a way to do it, but you could change the default to gel shell, or you can change it. You can change the method of shell on there. I wanted to change to no root login. Actually, that might be no login. I'd have to check that, or I have to enable that. Okay, so I could disable root. Maybe if I enabled this here. I'm not sure. I'll have to get back to you on that video. I'll do it in my security video there. But you can disable and enable shell access in here, which of course you should keep that off unless you're using it or kind of really specific on it. Packages. This is how to create web hosting packages. It can easily set up. So, just like we mentioned there, we were creating that account. We can actually create our packages on here, on the fly. Backup and restore. If you wanted to do it on a server level, if you wanted to back up or restore, full backup or structured only backup, you could do it inside of here. Pretty basic. If I wanted to import a account from SiteWorx, cPanel, direct admin, InSum or Plesk 7.8, I can do that here. If I have a mass transfer, I can do it here, or if I import a Plesk. So, this is another section. I'll get to a bigger video of this, because we are seeing a lot of people move over from cPanel to InterWorx that don't want to have that license cost. And that's why we deployed it on our VPSs. So they've got migration options, to do that. If you're coming over to NameHero, though, we will assist with the migration. We've got to modify our migration policy, on this slightly, to depending on how many accounts you have. Right now, we do 10 free accounts. If you're coming from a cPanel box to an InterWorx box, we will still do those free. So we typically say 10 free cPanel to cPanel transfers. If you're coming cPanel to InterWorx, we will do those 10 free as well. If you have more than that, then let us know and we'll see. We're going to work with you on that because we are seeing a lot of people want to come over. But you do have the ability to import those accounts here on your own as well. So there's several, in short, if you're wanting to move over to InterWorx on our VPS hosting, there is options. This is the root Softaculous information. So, you saw the end user example just a few minutes ago, but this is the root, the hoster access. So, if you've got customers or resellers, this is where you configure Softaculous for them. Okay, so now we mentioned resellers. This is the reseller section of it. So, if you own a VPS and you actually want to create reseller accounts, this is where you do that. Now, of course, I've got a master account here, but I could add a reseller account here. And this would be a reseller that would be essentially creating child accounts on the VPS. So again, this is definitely beneficial for those reselling hosting. It's kind of the same stuff as creating accounts, but the different thing here is you would actually assign the reseller limits. So you could create a reseller package, which I don't have, or you can limit the space or bandwidth or both, or how many emails they can create. You can also limit, how many accounts they can create and all that stuff. So it's just basically assigning a reseller an account and also assigning their limits. Same thing as with sites, you can create reseller packages, and then bandwidth history. There's a lot of focus on bandwidth history, I don't know, am I the only person that really doesn't look at bandwidth nowadays? Maybe so. Okay, so now we get down to system services, but I guess I made light of that. In short, resellers, it's all the same stuff we've talked about, but we've been talking about the root user and then the individual SiteWorx users. Resellers allows you to have another middle person in there. So the root, you have the reseller, then the also children users. So not much to talk about there, just creating the user and giving them access to certain system limits. This is the actual services, and we kind of highlighted these in the beginning, but if I click on web server, I can get a little bit more detail here. It's running, Apache's running, I can pause it, refresh it, or reboot it, or stop it. I can see my my process graph, start on boot, yes. Don't change any of this default stuff unless you know what to do. Specifically, if I want to refresh the PHP FPM cache, I can do that here, restart PHP FPM. See what version I'm running in npm, and a bunch of logs and config stuff. And this is all the configuration for Apache. So it's much like cPanel years ago and integrated all this inside of Web Host Manager to where you don't have to go modify this on the command line. So the same as in here with InterWorx. So you can modify your ports or whatnot. But again, don't mess with this stuff unless you know what you're doing. And if you're with us here at NameHero, we'd be more than willing to help you tweak these to make sure that you're getting the most out of your VPS. Here's our PHP integration. You can see we do have it set to PHP FPM by default. If you wanted to use the SUPHP mod SUPHP instead of PHP FPM, you can. It's a little bit less memory intensive, but you also don't get the performance of PHP FPM. Of course, the enabled versions. Now, these are just enabled on the server as a whole. So, if I wanted to just get rid of these old versions, I could do it here. But then my users could not use these versions. And there is PHP 7.4 in here too that's not enabled. So you've got all your PHP options, and of course this is the default version. Right now 7.2 is good, but of course that will change over time. And you can update it here, your PHP info file, and then all your Apache modules are inside of here. So I'll do another video on how to add those because I'm sure over time you're going to need some, but I don't think if I click these, they don't do anything. It just shows the current Apache modules that are installed. FTP, this just kind of gets into more of the configuration of the FTP server. If you wanted to disable it or change the port or change the login max or anything like that, you can do that. And of course, all your options here. So, most people leave it as it is unless you're not wanting to use FTP at all. Then you can change it. Oh, I'm sorry, this is SFTP. So see, I like to use SFTP and not FTP. So you could change your FTP port here. See, I like to use a hard to guess one personally. But anyways, all that can be configured there. I'll do a security video as well to show you. SSH server. And so we can change our SSH port. See, this is a big one to disable or to change this port. And here's my change root. So I don't like to use root login, so I like to use no on that. And again, I'll have a video to show all the stuff that you should do to harden or secure your VPS. Of course, you can ask our team too, and they'll do it for you. Mail server options. So with mail, you've got several different options because you have your primary SMTP. They've got an alternate, your spam filtering and all that stuff. Sorry, my voice is starting to go here. We're getting a little long here. But basically, you can modify this stuff if you need to. I personally wouldn't unless you specifically know what you're doing, but you have all the options to modify your mail servers. Again, most of the time, you're not going to need to do anything with that. Same here with Dovecat, mail server there, your POP3 or your MDA server information in case your Dovecat stuff is here. Spam filtering, so this gets back to kind of spam assassin, which we went through already inside on the end user. But if I wanted to make some master changes, I could do it here. If I wanted to have a global white or blacklist or trusted networks, of course, if you were a reseller, you'd want to trust your local domain in there. Virus filtering, so it's kind of a pre-built-in kind of antivirus malware type scanner that they've got. Let's give it a second here while it comes up. And they use ClamAV and FreshClam. So these are standard. These have been on cPanel by default for a long time. I like ClamAV for the most part. Sometimes it gets a little memory hungry. Same with FreshClam. I think FreshClam is what updates the ClamAV. But all kinds of stuff in there if you want. You can enable it on SMTP. So when you're sending emails, it will scan it on your emails, or you can disable it. You can see disable or enable it inside of there. Kind of personal preference. Mail queue, this is how you can see if spam's coming in. You can see the queue's empty here, but if you have any queues, obviously you want to look at them for spam and you can test. And so pretty good stuff. The queue actually populates inside of here though, if the mail queue starts filling up. If you've used Web Host Manager, mail queue is your friend. Let's see what's going on with the mail server. So lots of mail options. MySQL. We'll get to our overview. So we've got our graphs, and then this is our my.cnf file. So, typically you would go and edit this in like /etc/my.cnf, but you can edit that stuff all inside of here. Leave this stuff default unless you know what you're doing, but this is where you go to tune. Maria is the database engine that's running. Stop, restart, or refresh it, whatever you need. The current MySQL processors are all listed here. This is good to kind of troubleshoot your high MySQL usage if you would run into that. But, again, standard stuff, everything's all inside of here. And you can configure it. I think that's the big point of this video, is showing you everything is inside of here that you need to manage your server. This is for remote. If you needed to add a remote server, if you didn't want to have your MySQL databases on the server, you could do the remote here, which makes it's a nice integration. But by default, it's localhost. Your master PHP myadmin, and I could log in here if I wanted to see all my databases, which I don't. DNS server. Our primary DNS, secondary DNS, it's kind of all the basic DNS options for your VPS. If you have private name servers, you want to do them here. I wouldn't change your local resolvers or any of this stuff here unless you know specifically what you're trying to accomplish. Zones are pretty cool because this is your basic DNS template. So all the accounts you create will use this template, and you could go in and modify it, to change it to have specific records added. And you can see default panel was created, so it's its own record, and I can edit that as well. So, and I think I talked about that in the beginning about how you set up those records, and you can do that inside of SiteWorx as well. Okay, so let's go to synchronization. Okay, so if you're using a different DNS server, so add a DNS listener to the server. A DNS listener pools the server for all DNS data. So, if you're doing like a clustering configuration, most of you won't need this, but if you are, meaning if you're using one set of name servers for like 10 servers, you would add and set that up inside of here. cPanel calls it clustering. NFS servers, so this is for your network file system. They allow you to add a server that can share files, so a file system that can be shared across other servers, which is cool. So, if you have a lot of files somewhere else, then you want to add that, you can. That's a huge bonus to InterWorx, actually. I don't have this set up, but perhaps we'll talk about that at another time. Security and firewall. So this is CSF. So if you've used Web Host Manager ever with NameHero, you know we love CSF. So this is your, your firewall blocks and configuration, protects you from DDoS and all that fun, happy stuff. So it's all in here just like it, would be on a usual server with CSF. So that's just where the firewall is and running. And I'm glad to see them implement this. InterWorx actually did not integrate with CSF the first time I looked at it. So this is new, and I'm glad to see that they've done that. Okay, so we can keep on going down the list here. So we've got our system health. And just kind of bear with me. I'm starting to lose my voice. We're getting about an hour and 16 minutes into this. So we're going to probably briefly highlight these next sections, and then we'll hit the other ones as well. So then we've got our system health. This is the overall view of it. And here we go. This is the overall kind of status manager of all the services that are running. And you can see I've got history, configuration, but I don't have any, all green, so I'm good. If I see red or a warning, then there's an issue. This is system level cruns. So, my basic stuff here. This is to update InterWorx and a couple other stuff. So these are like system generated cron jobs. I don't want to change these, but if I wanted to add another root one, I can do that. I can look at other crons such as the root user. So these are already set up and in use, but if I wanted to add a root cron, I could do it here nice and easily. Firewall, we use CSF, so we're not going to have the other firewall here. SSL certificates, so you can see these are automatically generated by us for your services, so you don't have to worry about modifying those. I've got my logs, so InterWorx log, DNS logs, any kind of log you need, you can find them in here. It sure beats having SSHN sometimes just to view your logs inside of here. Got my settings. These are default settings of InterWorx as a whole. Your license key and the date format. All your just kind of your basic stuff. And we could spend the whole video just talking about this. But this is where you change your settings to InterWorx. Everything's in there. Software updates. So this will see if we need to update something. OS updates are enabled, InterWorx are enabled, and you can have your email to notify you as well. I like to use release. Please don't use. I don't like to use beta or candidate releases. I just like use release default or candidate. That's what I like to use by default. Stable's cool too, but beta I don't like to use. So that's the only one I don't recommend against. These are Yum software repositories. So you can see some of these are disabled, but I could go in and enable these, I'm sure, and there's a whole bunch of them. So if you need to add some Yum repositories, you could do that right here. Again, this is nice to have it right here in the interface versus having to command into the server. My system graphs, so of course I've got my processes. As far as the web server is concerned, my FTP, my SQL, mail, system resources, memory CPU, processes load average, and the network resources. So tons of graphs here. These are pretty cool. These actually, are a big help, especially if you're, wanting to check your CPU resources. I wish we could do this per account, but, you can really drill down here and see, how the server's health is overall. Final thing is our IPs. So this server only has 2. You can add as many as 10 on your VPSs here at NameHero. It comes standard with 1, but if you need more, you can, of course, add as many as 10. This is where you'll find those to configure them. IP version 6, we're not using that yet, so we're not going to get into that. Default sites, you can see that you can set up a area so when someone creates an account or when you create an account that they have a default page, and I've lost mine. Where is it? Right here. So this is by default what they see, but you can change this, to have your own custom brand or, anything specific to your company can be inside of there. So I think that's cool. You can set that up right there. Remote assistance, you're not going to need that. You've got NameHero. If you want to talk to InterWorx support, you just hit up NameHero and we'll help you out. But they've got the ability to log into your server and then, of course, log out. So in about an hour and 20 minutes, that's InterWorx with NodeWorx and SiteWorx and as a whole. As you can see, it's got everything you need. I'm super excited to have our partnership here with InterWorx at NameHero. Right now, this is only on our VPS hosting. This is not yet available for our shared or reseller hosting. Eventually, it will be. Eventually, you'll be able to get a shared or reseller with InterWorx control panel. But right now, we still have cPanel and Web Host Manager for those. VPSs, this is now free with all our VPS hosting packages. unlimited accounts, unlimited domains. If you're a current customer and you're worried about the cPanel price increase and you want to not worry about it and not have a price increase, come on over to InterWorx. We'll migrate that for free. I'm going to send an email, blog posts, and a bunch of other stuff on that to let you know. But since we did make these publicly available today, I did want to get a video tutorial out to show you that InterWorx is your friend. It's here, and it's got all the stuff that you need, and it will make your life a lot simpler. So I also especially want to thank the InterWorx team. We've spent a lot of time together over the last couple of months, and they've been great to work with. I'm really excited for our future development opportunities. Any feedback you have on InterWorx with us here at NameHero, let us know. Send me a message, Ryan@NameHero.com. Let me know specifically, because I haven't looked at control panels in over 10 years, and so InterWorx has been the first one I've really got to dive into and work with, and so I'm really happy to get it out. And really excited for the future with InterWorx here with us here at NameHero. So we're glad to have them. We look forward to you using it. Let us know if you have any questions. I covered a ton of stuff in this video. InterWorx, there's still not a lot of stuff out there about it. So you're going to see a ton of videos and documentations and screen stuff from us here at NameHero. So if you have something specifically you would like to see, let us know. But give me a couple weeks and I'm going to have a ton of content out. Anyways, so check out our updated VPS hosting packages at NameHero. I'm pretty sure you'll be excited with all the offerings that we have, as well as your ability to build your own cloud out now. And we look forward to your continued and future business. It's certainly our pleasure to serve you. So thanks so much for watching and using us here at NameHero.com.